The lights hummed and then shifted, like a voice changing tone mid-sentence. It was one sentence that lived in the small, boxed world of the maintenance office, and it said that something had noticed Sam. Sam had taken the night shift because the day job could not bend to the needs of a sick father and 2 school bills. The building on Maple and 3rd was supposed to be routine, a warren of offices, copy rooms, vending machines, and a back room that smelled of dust and toner. But the nights rewired the place into something else. The fluorescent tubes buzzed like a distant insect, the elevator lungs released an oily breath when it stopped, and a cold lick of air always stole in from the delivery bay. Sam felt the floorboards vibrate up through the soles of his shoes when the central air kicked in, and sometimes a metallic taste bloomed at the back of his tongue, as if the wiring itself were rusty with secrets. If you watch this until the end, I will tell you why the normal and the supernatural begin to borrow the same language in a workplace where no one is meant to be alone, and I will ask you to leave a comment about your own nights, because those comments have a way of gathering into a map of truths we rarely see. If you like these stories, hit the bell and leave a like, and tell me in the comments from where you are listening. We have been waiting for you. The first night, it was a shadow that did not follow the angles of the shelving. It was a suggestion of presence under the loading light, a silhouette that fit in the pool of sodium glare like a human folding into bad memory. Sam tightened the lock and told himself it was a vagrant, a delivery, a prank. He told himself 1,000 plausible things, because telling himself the truth would be to admit he had chosen to stay when he could have gone home. At 3 in the morning, the PA system clicked and an old greeting played, garbled, like a cracked record box telling customers the store hours. Then the lights went wrong. The fluorescents did not merely flicker. One by one, they sighed, and then they strobed in a slow, accusing rhythm that made the cans in the storage line up like teeth. Sam could hear his heartbeat, a low drum under the building hum, and footsteps that were too methodical to belong to a drunk or a raccoon. He walked the aisle with his key ring jangling, and the shelves smelled of plastic and lemon cleaner. He heard his name whispered through the speaker, a low consonant that could have been the wind through piping, and it trembled against his ribs like a child's hand. The opening scene is short but sharp, because the nights leave no room for long starts. Sam had a reason to be there beyond
rent. He had to pay for the pills his father needed, and Jenna, his sister, kept calling to count days. At home, the radiator clanged, and his father did not know how to ask for help. So Sam worked nights and pretended the dark would be enough to make his mistakes invisible. The first small incidents were the kind that could be chalked up to stress. A roll of tape moved from one shelf to another when no one had entered the stockroom. The security camera showed empty aisles, and then a smear of static and an odd refraction that looked like a head bowed forward. A coworker named Elena joked about poltergeists in the break room, stirring her coffee until the cup sang. But Mark, the supervisor, just raised an eyebrow and said he would log it. Then came the photographs. Sam found a packet of old, creased pictures behind a pallet of catalogs in the back room. Images of the building under a different name. Faces set in black and white with dates in the margins. One of them had a woman with a mouth that smiled strangely and eyes that did not seem to reflect light. Someone had hand-scrawled a note on the corner of that picture. It said a name that made Sam sit down on the cold tile, because the name belonged to a neighbor back on Elm who had vanished years ago. He remembered Rosa from the barbershop window, the way she talked about morning prayers, and how she kept a small rosary in her pocket. He remembered Mr. Whitman from the office downstairs, who kept a careful ledger and a suspiciously bored look. He remembered Carlos, who worked 3rd shift at the deli that delivered sandwiches. He remembered Mike, the janitor, who always left his radio on low. Suddenly, the pile of old photos was not just a curiosity. The building had a memory, and that memory smelled like burned sugar and old coffee. Sam pressed his thumb to the ink on the corner of one photograph and felt something sticky and cold that was not glue, and he began to think differently about the nights. The exploration of the early nights had 2 scenes that widened the unease. Scene 1 took place at the inventory table, where the fluorescent light above made the counters look like operating rooms. In this scene, there are exchanges that build character and fear. "You all right, Sam?" asked Jenna over the phone. "Did you lock the east service door?" Sam said. "I did 20 minutes ago," Elena replied. And then, in the feed of voices, they argued about a broken pallet. The exchanges multiplied. "Mark, the camera scrub shows a shape," Sam said. "Send me the clip," Mark said. "It disappears," Sam said. "Maybe the lens is dirty," Elena said. "No, watch the corner," Sam said. "It looks like someone bending," Mark said. "Someone who does not have a reflection," Elena said, half laughing, half not.
"Get someone in here tomorrow," Mark said finally. "I cannot," Sam said. "You need to tell someone," Elena said. "Who?" Sam asked. "Anyone," she said. "The police? The owner? The landlord?" Sam asked. "Start with the owner," Mark said. That scene ends with the sound of a pallet shifting on its own and a faint whisper through the intercom that sounded like the building clearing its throat. Scene 2 happens at the loading bay when the rain made the concrete smell like iron. The smell of rain brought a metallic tang into Sam's mouth, and the asphalt hissed under the delivery truck lights. "Hey, Sam, you need a hand?" called Carlos, leaning out of the truck. "I am fine," Sam said. "You look pale," Carlos said. "It is nothing," Sam said. "You sure?" Carlos said. "Yeah," Sam lied. "You should go home," Mike, the janitor, called from the shadows where the machines slept. "No," Sam said. "I have to finish." "Finish what?" Carlos asked. "The logs," Sam said. "Logs for what?" Carlos asked, and the word log sounded like a pebble thrown into still water. "For the records," Sam said. "You look like the records look at you," Carlos said softly. The exchange stretched with small domestic phrases that did not explain the tension. Each line added weight. At around this point, I pause in the story to talk to you and to ask a question, because this is when comments matter. If you have ever been alone at night and heard something that did not make sense, I want you to tell me. Start your comment with the words "no turn" and then describe the sound. Do not leave it at that, because your detail helps others feel less alone when they read it. I read the comments, and I mean it when I say your stories help shape what comes next. They make patterns. They build a communal map. Now back to Sam. We have been waiting for you. The investigation moves as curiosity and dread collide. Sam starts to look into the names on the photos. He finds a yellowed newspaper clipping folded into the seam of a box of invoice forms. The headline mentions the building and a small line about a missing custodial crew from a decade ago. He calls Officer Alvarez at the local precinct and hears the bureaucratic guardrails of any investigation. "We closed that case," Officer Alvarez says. "There was no foul play concluded," the officer told him. "Someone was found," later, Sam pressed. "Not officially linked," Officer Alvarez said. "Do you have a list of employees from back then?" Sam asked. "I will check the records," Officer Alvarez said. Sam speaks to Anna, who runs the laundromat across the street, and she remembers a woman named Rosa who used to come in with skirts smelling of bay leaves. Sam talks to Jenna, who used to babysit for a girl from a past employee name list. He talks to Mr. Whitman, who gives him a ledger that lists names from the year in question. The debris of memory begins to accumulate. Names pile up. Elena visits Sam one afternoon and frowns at the pictures. "This face," she says, and points to a woman who looks like she is smiling but also afraid. "Who is that?" she asks. "Rosa," Sam says. "She delivered pastries once a week," Jenna says. "I remember her," Carlos says. "And the janitor who left early that month," Mike adds. "You are naming ghosts," Elena says, but her voice is soft. The backstory forms a tight knot around Sam like rope. He remembers his father murmuring about a business on Maple and 3rd that closed after a mysterious fire. He remembers stories of a night manager who left and never returned. He remembers his own youth counted in small increments of need. This backstory sits on him like a warm coat that cannot be shed. It explains why he will not simply leave. The first major confrontation arrives on a night when the security feed freezes and then replays a loop of the same 5 seconds over and over. Sam watches the loop. The loop shows the service door opening and closing, a dark figure pausing beneath the sodium lamp, and then the figure stepping into the camera frame with its head lowered. The figure does not move like a human. It moves as if pulled by strings. Sam walks to the bay, and the sound of his shoes on concrete is a click of a metronome. He calls out, "Hello?" The night answers with a scraping that sounded like fabric against metal. "Who is there?" he said. "Leave," a voice said, soft and dry. "Leave what?" Sam asked. "Everything," the voice said. "Why?" Sam asked. The voice did not answer. It repeated a phrase like a mantra. "We have been waiting for you." And the timbre of the words made the building feel like a mouth closing around itself. The exchanges escalate and fill the air. "What do you want?" Sam demanded. "You know," the voice said. "No, I do not," Sam said. "You do," the voice replied. "I am Sam," he said, leaving a sliver of himself like an offering. "I work here," he said. "You are part of the counting now," the voice said. The conversation grew until Sam felt his own sentences bumping into the voice like two strangers trying the same exit. He flicked a flashlight, and the beam cut through a thickness in the air that was not dust. It was movement. It was memory. That moment of tension stretched out for almost 4 minutes of recorded video, and it was recorded as a string of broken sentences, a chorus of whispers, and the intermittent bark of a security camera trying to refocus. This sequence sits as a 550-character tension piece that goes like a slow panic. The air turned to ice. He felt his breath like small ghosts leaving his mouth. His hands went numb. The flashlight felt like it belonged to someone else. He heard his name again, and the voice sounded thrilled. He stepped forward, and the floor mapped his steps like a ledger. He could not tell if the building was rearranging itself or if memory was rearranging him. After that night, the pattern widened. Local names began to react. Anna from the laundromat called with a trembling voice and said she had dreamt of the same photograph Sam had found. Mr. Whitman left a note on Sam's locker. "Do not dig up what is buried." Officer Alvarez, who had checked records, called to say some files were sealed for reasons of privacy. Jenna called to advise that someone had been asking about late shifts at the stores on Maple. "Someone came by and asked if anyone ever worked nights at your place," she said. "I told them you did," Sam said. "Who?" Jenna asked. "A man in a trench coat," Sam said. "Old man?" Jenna asked. "No," Sam said. "Young, maybe?" "I will stop by," Elena said. "I will take some pictures," Carlos said. "We should go as a group," Mike said. The community had become a chorus of concern and half-formed solutions. Names flew like paper planes through the night. The building returned their attention with small retaliations. A photograph on the break room wall cracked like skin. A radio powered off and on and spat a static voice that said, "We have been waiting for you." The refrain began to echo in longer corridors, a sentence whose meaning twisted with every repetition until it felt less like a sentence and more like a shape. There is a section of internalization where sleep becomes a risk, and the protagonist slips into a dream state that begins to feel like a second workplace. Sam dreamed the back room like a cathedral constructed of shelves. In his dream, the fluorescent lights hung like chandeliers, and the smell of plastic turned to incense. He was walking the aisles, and the stacks bowed to him like reverent hands. He heard whispering under the racks, a litany of numbers and names, as if someone was taking inventory of people rather than goods. The dream is a 2-paragraph fragment that stretches the logic. He listened and he understood that the tally named people who had not been accounted for. He saw a ledger with the names Anna, Elena, Jenna, Mark, Carlos, Mike, Mr. Whitman, and a scrawl that read Sam with a red line waiting to be crossed. He woke with his hand clenched around a receipt that had names printed in shop ink. The tactile feel of the paper was real enough to remember. The sensory details in the dream were thick. The hum in his ears, the smell of cold metal, the texture of corrugated cardboard under his palm, the taste of dust, and the sight of his own face reflected in a safety mirror and looking older. Dream sequence is about 550 characters, and it sits in 2 rounded breaths. Then comes the climax. The final confrontation is a choreography of conversation and small acts that feel monumental. Sam calls a meeting in the back room and gathers Elena, Carlos, Jenna, Mike, Mark, and Mr. Whitman. They stand in a circle under a light that flickers like a guilty mind. Dialogue arrives in an extended exchange. "We are doing this now," Mark says. "We should bring the camera," Elena says. "I will lock the doors," Mike says. "Do we bring the photos?" Jenna asks. "Yes," Sam says. "We will lay them on the table," Mr. Whitman says. "We will name them out loud," Carlos says. "We will tell them what we remember," Elena says. "And if something answers," Mark asks. "We will not run," Sam says. "We will hold the line," Mike says. "Hold what?" Jenna asks. "The truth," Sam says. "You will not succeed," the voice said from a shadow near the supply closet. The conversation that follows is dense and long. The voice sings back lines from their childhoods and from files ripped from ledgers. It repeats, "We have been waiting for you," and then spins the phrase into other shapes. "You have waited for us. We are the waiting." The group names their fear out loud, and the naming feels like a lock being clicked. "Rosa," Elena says. "The janitor who left," Mike says. "The night manager," Mr. Whitman says. "All of them," Jenna said. "All of them," Carlos echoed. "What do they want?" Mark asked. "To be counted," the voice said. Sam reaches forward and takes a photograph in his hand and reads aloud the name on the back, and the building answered with 1,000 little sounds like pages turning at once. They all felt a pressure like someone breathing through a keyhole. The next 300 seconds are a gust of motion. The light went bright white and then dim, like someone toggling a switch. Objects shifted their positions as if the room were being rearranged by an unseen hand. The floorboards made a long, slow creak, like a chorus, and then, suddenly, the voice spoke the refrain one last time with a tenderness that made Sam want to cry. The confrontation ends in a choice, a moment of decision where Sam reaches out not with a weapon, but with a ledger, with a list of names, and lays it down in the center of the circle. "We remember," he said. "We remember who you were." The room stilled, as if memory itself had been honored. The voice wound down and said, "Then keep a light on us," and the lights returned to normal. That moment of choice is captured in a long dialogue of 10 exchanges and counts as the climactic pivot. The immediate aftermath is small and oddly domestic. They close the back room and lock the doors. Sam leaves the building carrying a bag with his tools and the creased photos. The night smells different after the encounter, like a street that had been measured and then agreed upon. He hears Jenna on the phone making a list of names to post on a neighborhood group. Officer Alvarez comes by the next day and takes statements. Anna posts a memory on social media about a woman who used to hum while folding laundry. Mr. Whitman cleans out a drawer and finds a small brass tag with initials. Mark writes a memo to corporate that reads like a complaint, but which softens into an acknowledgement of something anomalous. They do not explain everything. They create a ritual instead. A little shrine of photographs and names is placed behind the stockroom door. They light a lamp there each night, and someone leaves a cup of coffee. The refrain appears again, like a small wound. The phrase, "We have been waiting for you," echoes in their mouths differently now, and the meaning softens to an invitation rather than a threat. Sam keeps working because he must. He keeps looking at the photographs because he cannot unsee the faces. He keeps a list in his wallet of the names and the dates. The immediate resolution is partial and contains the wound of not knowing fully closed but bandaged. A line remains open. The epilogue unfolds in 3 temporal beats that show the slow architecture of consequence and healing. 1 month later, the community has begun to rearrange the story into something less supernatural and more civic. Anna organizes a small altar of photographs outside the laundromat. She pins a note that says, "We will remember," and people come and leave flowers. Jenna collects oral histories in a notebook and posts names in an online group where neighbors add details and memories. Officer Alvarez finds an old municipal ledger and uncovers paperwork that had been misfiled decades ago, and which provides context for some of the missing persons. Elena organizes a fundraiser and uses the event to bring neighbors together and to talk about safety on the night shift. Carlos starts a free sandwich rota for night workers. Mr. Whitman donates a lamp to be left on in the break room. Sam sits at home and finally writes a letter to his father, not about rent, but about gratitude. The building on Maple and 3rd becomes a place where talking is an act of repair. Those acts are small, but they stitch the edges of the wound. The refrain is said at the top of a meeting, and its echo is softer. 3 months later, there is a public meeting in the small town hall, where people bring notes and clippings, and the mayor, who is nervous and polite, says he will commission a review of historic records. Officer Alvarez gives a brief talk about missing persons protocols and transparency. A reporter writes a piece that is careful and kind, and mentions that sometimes buildings hold grief. The shrine at the stockroom grows with names and trinkets. Some nights, Sam still hears the whisper, and it no longer turns his blood to ice. He learns to leave a light on behind the stockroom door, and when he does, he feels that the light is not only protecting him, but joining him in a basic act of recognition. 6 months later, the change is more practical. The landlord installs new locks and improves lighting. The community rota has expanded into a night watch where volunteers check in on each other and on workers who are alone. Jenna receives a small grant to bring speakers to talk about night economy safety. Anna leads a weekly memory circle focused on those who worked nights. Mr. Whitman volunteers records, and a small archive is begun. Sam finds that his own hands do not tremble as much when he keys the lock. He still tastes metal sometimes, and the lights still hum, but the hum is no longer a threat. The epilogue ends with a quiet and complicated sentence. The building keeps its shadows, as any place with history will, but the harvest of names and the ritual of the lamp have made a difference. The refrain persists like an old song now that people sing together. The last line is an invitation and a warning. If you ever find a photograph in a back room, do not toss it out. Fold it, read it aloud. Put a light near it and make a list. Name what you find. Because the normal and the supernatural share the need to be counted, and sometimes counting is what sets the world back in balance. If this story made you feel something, share it with someone who works the night. Subscribe if you want more true feeling stories told without spectacle. We have been waiting for you.